Welcome back to Animal Crossing New Horizons. I'm Leah Darling, and shall we see what's going on our lovely island of Fawnhallow today? Where we'll be relaxing as per usual, recording a bit of AC, you know how it is. Black and yellow, I don't know. Of course, later than usual recording, obviously because of D&D session, pretty good one, I would say. I didn't feel like I was on top form personally. Today. Like I felt like, so I mean, there's always going to be ups and downs, I suppose, when it comes to it, but I was just like, I feel like I'm usually a little bit better trying to work out conversation, but to be fair, I was doing 2 accents, which I was like, I don't really know how to do very well, so good evening everyone, right now in Fawnhallow, it's 11:20 PM on Monday, January 13th, 2025, because that's, I said the sponsor said this again, that a lot of the D&D NPC characters I introduce, I'm just like, I want to do this because I want to try, I want to give them interesting accents, distinct accents, so they're differentiable from one another for one main thing, but also because it's kind of fun, like I said, I wanted to learn how to do a Minnesotan accent. That's why one of the biggest characters in one of the campaign has a Minnesotan accent, and there are these 2 characters which we were introduced to in this session. Technically it's kind of free, but like they met the 3rd character of the previous one, but just didn't really speak with her all that much, for good reason, for lore reasons. Well, one of my characters certainly has a aversion to her, shall we say. But yes, I forgot what I was going to say. I guess I was just sort of sit down, I don't know what I'm going to talk about. So, 2 characters being introduced. I was very excited. These characters were conceptually existing for a while. I just didn't really know when to introduce them. Like I was considering introducing them much earlier, like in the Act 1 quick quote of their campaign, but then I thought about it more and I'm like, no, these NPCs might end up being bigger players or something. I'm not going to introduce them in Act 1 because that's not where they're gonna stay. It doesn't make sense to do so, in my opinion. But yes, the 2 characters, there is one character, and she has a Geordie accent, kind of, except I don't really know how to do a Geordie accent very well, so it's a learning process. the only thing I remember is because it keeps going really Scottish for me, because I guess it does have like some Scottish overlap, but not like that much. So you like start with Scottish and tone it down or something. But anyway, I can't do a good Geordie accent, Geordie being like the Newcastle sort of region. But the phrase I always think about is roundabout, go straight through the roundabout, or something like that. And I don't know, and except for some reason, I mean, like I always try and give them different voice qualities as well. Except for, of course, when I'm not used to doing a voice, it's very hard to give them both a voice quality and the accent. She has like quite a screechy sort of voice, I guess. Like she's got a very high pitched voice. And the thing I was like, what was one of the key phrases which was going to get me into her mindset would be like, I don't think she wants to drink with us anymore. Because she has like this very sort of shaky voice as well. Anyway, it was very difficult to consistently do. So most of the times I just kind of relied on doing the high screechy part of it, and then like I made it a bit Scottish when I was like, I don't know how to say this in a Geordie accent. Anyway, was it my best accent? No, of course not. But that's a process, like, because presumably this character will recur a little bit, and then I'll have to get used to doing a voice, and then eventually it will become second nature. If it happens with a Minnesotan accent, kind of, then it can happen with this one too. It's a slow, gradual process. Anyway, the other one has like a vague Scandinavian accent, which he didn't really speak that much, so I don't think it really came across. And also I was like way focused on trying to do the other voice correctly. I was like, I couldn't also super focus on remember how to do that voice, especially because he's meant to have a bit more of an interesting sort of voice quality to him, which sort of came up a little bit, but I don't know if it picked up on necessarily as much. Mainly because one of the things I didn't really emphasize as much, but one of the things it did, but I was just like, ha ha ha. Anyway, they'll see more. Or maybe they won't, I don't know. But yeah, so always fun trying to get some different accents going. Always very difficult as well. But what are we going to talk about today? Good question. I have all these ski clothes which I've ordered, and they're sitting in like a parcel of it. They have arrived. I've not opened them yet to see how they turn out or if they fit. I should, but it's a bit late today, so I'll probably just do it tomorrow instead. But yeah, I'm not sure what else to talk about, to be honest. I don't really have anything on mind. Nothing games-wise either. A Little to the Left I spoke about yesterday, didn't I? It was a nice sort of organisational game. I feel like in retrospect I was maybe a bit harsher on it than I should have been, which is normally why I give myself a bit of time to sort of like mull over what I really think of it. I think it's fine. But definitely I think I was a bit ruder than well, I'm not sure rude is really the right word, but I was just like far more critical than I would necessarily be. Anyway, what am I going to talk about? I need to respond to comments. Maybe I'll do that in a bit afterwards. Yeah, I mean, I could talk more about D&D, I suppose so. That was one character. Her name's Callie. But I don't know too much about her, except that she has some sort of innate connection with the astral sky. That's not really spoiler, that's something that she gave away very readily. There's of course always more to these characters, or always more to the characters which are important NPCs. I try not to make them so one note, because then there can always be facets. Do I expect my players to find out every single facet about these characters? No. I expect them to at least find out the major plot points of like how the character is relevant to them, and then if they like the character more, they can talk with them more, then they get like more like a medial layer, and then if they really like a character, then they can speak with the character more, and then they can try and figure out the puzzle of like unlocking them, like finding the right social conversations to have and things to bring up and way to bring it up such that the character will reveal to them those sort of secrets by building up over time. That's why it's sort of like a puzzle. That's why it's like, 3 sort of layers. One being like how, for the basic one who doesn't want to, the basic level, or one who doesn't want to engage with a social puzzle, being like, how are you relevant to me? Okay, fair enough. Second one being like, oh yeah, like how can I roleplay with you? That's the next level. And third one being like the puzzle level, being like, how can I figure out exactly what relevance you might have, and they'll get rewarded for it. Of course, all these NPCs are relevant in one way or another, because I think it would probably be even more frustrating where I just introduced the NPC and it was like, obviously there's a meta sort of narrative being like, oh, did Ali made this character, of course they're going to be like somewhat relevant, they've got like an image and everything, having you like chase that thread, and I'm just like, sorry, they really have no relevance to you whatsoever, they just exist. Which you might be like, that's realistic, that's how our life works. Yeah, but we're not playing live. We're playing a tabletop RPG game, and we only have so many NPCs we can meet so much time, and that we have in-game and out-game to spend doing it, so it doesn't make sense to me to give them a false trail. I'm not going to give them like the most direct trail, like some of the characters don't have that strong relevance or relevant in odd ways, but there's at least the potential of a puzzle to figure out each and every one of them, if they want, and if they don't, then no biggie, because it doesn't take too much to think, oh, this character had this as a backstory. That's how they're mildly relevant in some way or another. Anyway, I couldn't wait for them to meet this character, because like one of the major notes I have of this character is that she's a Girlfailure, which is a very sort of like endearing slang, I suppose, of a character who, how would I put it, is like a bit of a muck up, kind of, but like in a very endearing way. Like, how do you describe it? Define Girlfailure. It's like the opposite of a girl boss, right? A fictional girl or woman who's endearingly pathetic or inept. Yeah, that's basically how I would describe it. It can be used in a sexual or non-sexual way, excuse me. The term is always used in a positive way, that's true. Yeah, but that was like my main descriptive like hook for this character, I suppose, because they all have like one major hook of like what is their defining personality trait if you had to distill them down into 1 or 2 words. Because you need something to latch onto, otherwise if you're in doubt you're just like, how am I going to roleplay this character, what do they say in this moment? Default to that character personality trait as a cookie cutter. That's my DM tip for you, 101, or like I guess that's probably like 108 or something, to be honest. I will say, one of my players came up with the most ingenious pun for this character, which they thought was why I created them like this, and the answer is no, I didn't, but I wish I did. But the character is named Callie, and she is of course a Girlfailure, so she has like she was very sort of like mopey and sad the entire time, to be honest, and she has like a connection with the astral sky, which is a very sort of magical plane in my world. And that's why my player asked the most out of pocket like random question where I was like, where are you going with this? Where it was like, does this character have bad breath? And I was like, what the heck are you asking this for? But, you know, I'm a DM. You must have an idea of what you're doing, so we went along with it. But it turns out that she was trying to find out if his character had halitosis, because then they'd be super Callie, a fragile mystic who's hexed with halitosis. And I was like, that is... How did you even come up with that? That is honestly insanity to even come up with in first place. 100% not why she's named that, but I absolutely love it. So I'm almost wanting to retroactively do that. As I say, you know, D&D, collaborative story experience, I have no qualms. As long as it doesn't break, you know, the law or anything. If the player comes up with a better story point than me, then yeah, I'll take that story point. Is Callie meant to be that? No, but I say she is now. Her breath smells of alcohol. From her drowning her sorrows as well. Away, I suppose. It really was the most ridiculous pun. I quite like puns, but you can't even be mad about one. That was actual insanity. I don't know where on earth she plucked that from, but it was fantastic. But yeah, I don't know. Girlfailure feels like a very sort of modern descriptor, isn't it? I guess it's meant to run counterfact to Girl Boss, which is also quite a modern thing, older than Girlfailure, mind you. But what do I think of them as terms? I mean, I think they're kind of fine for like fictional terms, right, to describe the characters. I think that very much evokes like a trope of a character in someone's mind, so I think that's fine. Like, why wouldn't you want more ways to be able to describe something? It's probably a bit strange to describe an actual person, I think, as either a Girlfailure or Girl Boss, unless there's an ironic way, in my personal opinion. You might disagree, which is totally fair. But to me, it feels like Girl Boss, I guess, has a much stronger positive connotation, which makes me go, yeah, you know, calling someone a Girl Boss just means they're sort of like a go-getter, right? Yeah, I can see that and works quite nicely, but calling someone a Girlfailure, despite the fact, because it's used almost in like a pitying way, isn't it? Or I should say it's very much used in a pitying kind of way. Like, oh, you're absolutely useless, but you're still adorable. That's kind of like how it's used, which, you know, certainly is a bit patronising, I think, if you were to call someone an actual Girlfailure. Or whatever gender failure, I suppose. But Girlfailure is just the term I heard. I never heard of like boy failure or boy boss. That sounds just strange. I guess it's just Girlfailure, Girl Boss. Maybe because Girl Boss was the meme that was puppeted, and then to run counter to the meme, to run counterculture, Girlfailure was made as well. Do you think it's the TV tropes? Who do I think of when I think of Girlfailure? I think of Farina from Genshin Impact. Femininity failure. No, that's something different. Girlfailure's top character tropes. May from Night in the Woods. Okay, I can kind of see that. I don't think she would come to mind as Girlfailure, but I can kind of see it. Suzumiya Hai? I don't know. Goro Akechi? I have no idea. Komini from Chainsaw Man? Oh, I've seen like gifs of her. I don't know anything about her, but she definitely does give me that vibe of a Girlfailure. I haven't seen this anime though. Oh, Bocchi from Bocchi the Rock. Girlfailure the anime. I can kind of see that. I haven't seen it. Sorry, I don't know why I said it like that, but like, I don't know how to describe it. It's sort of just like they're kind of silly characters who are endearingly useless in some sense, but obviously have good qualities as well, because I feel like if you knew them in real life and they were just utterly useless at everything and then also had no redeeming qualities, you'd be like, what? But the point, I don't know, to me it's always like they still try, right? They're still doing their best. They just, you know, maybe luck's against them or something, or maybe, you know, life's been unfair in certain ways. But they've got like that sort of heart of gold, which, I don't know, I guess in some ways it's sort of like aspirational, right? Like, it's hard not to look at that and be like, yeah, you know, mood. Sometimes you feel like a failure because you're just like, oh, I did something terribly. I don't even mean that in like a self-demeaning way. Just like sometimes you do something wrong and you're just like, damn, shouldn't have done it like that. So I think there's like a certain level of comfort, I think, residing within the concept of a character trope for a Girlfailure. Because from that it gives a sense of relatability, right? You can look at that and be like, yeah, I can see myself in this character. I can see the way they fail, but the way they keep trying as like an aspirational thing for myself. I'm not saying that you should necessarily solely base your aspirations on fictional characters or something, especially ones which are not necessitated, but kind of born from a meme, in a sense. But it does certainly mean that you can at least analyse why it's such a sort of popular trope, right? I don't know, I think to me it's just like a kind of an endearing trope of perseverance. That's probably why it sort of sticks in my mind. Anyway, the concept of this character has been around for a while, of like a sort of like girl failure character, or basically a character who certainly I wanted to, I guess, have a much more flawed NPC who is not evil, because obviously evil characters are quite flawed, I suppose, by the sense that they're evil, but like a very notably flawed character. But obviously, you know, you run the danger if you make a very flawed character that your players are just going to be like, I hate this character so much. And if you didn't want them to hate that character, like, oh, this character had some sort of relevance, as long as they're not too invested in the character, you can completely pull away that relevance and just give it to another character, I suppose. In the end, and be like, okay, I'll try a bit better this time to win them over. Because the characters who I want to be relevant, or who should be relevant to the story, I will try to obviously make endearing. Like, I want my players to be like, oh yeah, I want to talk to this NPC, right? Because if they're too irritating otherwise, then it's going to be like, I'd want to take revenge on this NPC. That's how you make them villains. Or a hero which you don't really want to work with. You know, there's definitely a balance between the two. It's always good to make endearing villains as well, but the majority of your NPCs, or the ones that you want to be important, should be endearing. So I wanted to make she's born out of the idea of like a character who is very obviously and more apparently flawed, but, you know, is still trying. And then she can go on this sort of arc, I suppose, herself. Maybe she will, maybe she won't, I don't know, to improve herself, to be better at the end. Will it work? Will it won't? I don't know. That's, you know, partly for the story and the world itself to decide, and partly also for the characters to decide for themselves how they engage and support or not support. But yeah, although, I mean, if you look at it from a pure TV trope perspective, I think it's a very fun thing, a very silly thing. Look at his girl failures. Oh, Aqua from Konosuba, that makes a lot of sense. I've seen one episode of that. Seems reasonable. Who is this? She sucks, I love her. I don't even know who this is. I don't even know who you are. Google images. Alright, reverse image search. Who is this character? What? This is a web PB, isn't it? Why is Reddit's thing so annoying? Such that I can't just search who this character is. You know what? I don't want to know who this character is anymore then. Took too long to find out. Oh, this is the girl from... What's her name from Fear and Hunger? Like Samara or something, isn't it? Oh, Samari, that's it. Henrique apparently as well. I haven't played the game, but I did watch a very great video breaking down the story behind it. Oh, Watamute. Yeah, that's kind of like the iconic girl failure character, isn't it? If anything, I think a real positive of these like negative TV tropes, which are still seen on positive light, is that it's sort of like normalizing. I don't want to say normalizing failure because that's so ominous, but like normalizing flaws and improving flaws. I guess there would be a problem if it was like, this is a deeply flawed character, but then taking it as aspirational to never improve. That's certainly one thing or another, but I mean, TV tropes are just a way of like categorizing, right? Something in first place. And definitely I feel like TV tropes a lot of the time, me, fair enough, sort of have a Team Rocket trio. That's such a good one. But I think that's the iconic girl failures, or people failures. I guess we would just say failures now I think about it. It's like a TV trope. But like when I say it failure, it sounds mean-spirited, but for some reason saying it like girl failure does not sound mean-spirited. But that's probably because it's kind of like taken its own definition, isn't it? Anyway, I find it a rather amusing TV trope. But again, these are character tropes. These are not people descriptors. People are not characters, and people are not TV. People are not one trope in the end. But anyway, the long shot was I was very excited for him to meet his character because they're a very fun character, I think. There's like an amusing sort of breath of levity from a lot of the more serious characters that have existed in serious topics. So, on that note, I'm going to round this episode off here. So if you have been watching, thank you very much. It's been Animal Crossing New Horizons. I've been dear darling. Likes, comments, subscription, shares, greatly appreciated. Socials, Discord down below. Hope to see each other again, but for now, it's our farewell. So until next time, bye-bye for now.